Chair recognizes the gentleman from New Jersey, Mr. Smith.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I have 4 questions, Mr. Secretary, and welcome to the committee again.
Thank you.
The zero draft WHO pandemic treaty that the administration and others are pushing to get put into effect at the WHO starts off with a harsh criticism of the United States and the international community by calling it a catastrophic failure of the community in showing solidarity and equity in response to the coronavirus pandemic. I've read the treaty. I'm concerned about it. Article 4 pays lip service to sovereignty, and then has language that says, however, activities within their jurisdiction or control do not cause damage to their peoples and countries, so therefore WHO would be empowered to step in. And we're talking about Tedros, a man who's been put into that position by the People's Republic of China. He was their candidate and obviously showed terrible, terrible judgment in the beginning and even to this day in recognizing the origins of the of COVID-19. Article 10 says that 20%, the United States would be obligated to provide 20% of our medical supplies, including tests, antiviral vaccines, medications, and the like, to WHO. For them, they just say, we want it, you have to give it by treaty obligation. The sovereignty issue is the biggest, in my opinion. You're pushing for it. Next year is probably when it may get adopted. Will it be sent to the Senate for ratification? Or are you planning on using the executive agreement, which I think is a terrible way to do things? It ought to go to the Senate for ratification. Secondly, yesterday I chaired a hearing on Daniel Ortega's ever-worsening dictatorship in Nicaragua. And the day before, so that would be 2 days ago, EWTN journalist Owen Jensen asked John Kirby, are you aware of any efforts the U.S. is making to free Bishop Alvarez? And as you know, he got 26 years in prison in what is Ortega's war on the Catholic Church. Well, the spokesman, John Kirby, said, I'm going to have to take the question and get back to you. I'm not tracking that particular case. I hope that wasn't a revelation of priorities. If you could speak to the issue of what Ortega is doing, we need to look at every type of pressure we could bring to bear. He just had the foreign minister of Iran to his country, as you know, to Managua, to the capital. So I hope you would speak to that. Thirdly, on Nigeria, I appeal again to you to redesignate them as a CPC country. As you know, the Commission on International Religious Freedom has called your decision inexplicable, and it is a turning of the blind eye because more Christians have been killed in Nigeria, and the government has done precious little to stop it, and over 17,000 churches destroyed. I've been to several of those churches and saw firebomb churches from Boko Haram and others. So that, and finally on China, when you meet and talk with your counterparts in the PRC and the president himself, do you raise names in particular, like Gao Zhejiang and others, because it's very important that they be front and center.
Congressman, thank you very much. Good to see you again as well. First, I'll try and be brief. We are not engaged in negotiating a COVID treaty. What we're engaged in is trying to strengthen the global architecture for dealing with pandemics and do it in a way that, for example, make sure that if there's a next time, and I think there inevitably will be a next time, that countries actually are committed to transparency, to sharing information, to giving access to international inspectors, that we have the tools to do that, and the countries agree to that. That's, of course, not what China did in this instance, and we've all paid a price for that. At the same time, I think what we clearly demonstrated is over the course of the pandemic, the United States was the leading and most generous country in making sure that vaccines could be made available to those who needed them. We did it through COVAX. We did it free of charge. We did it without political strings attached, and I can tell you that has dramatically benefited our diplomacy and our standing in the world, especially in contrast to the way other countries have done this. But we're happy to work with you on this, and I take the points that you've raised. Bishop Alvarez is very much on my mind and on the mind of the State Department. As you know, the Nicaraguans expelled more than 200 political prisoners. The good news, of course, is that they were freed from jail. The bad news is they can't live in their own country and freely express themselves. I met with the leaders of the Democratic opposition who were freed at the State Department, heard them, and believe me, Bishop Alvarez should be released, and we'll continue to work on that. When it comes to Nigeria, I very much appreciate what you've said. We are working day in, day out, standing up for the rights of persecuted religious minorities around the world. I think the report speaks for itself and speaks to why we do certain designations, why we don't do others. I'm happy to follow up with you offline. And then on China, yes, absolutely. We name names. I name names. I've gone over repeatedly with my counterparts in China the names of people who are being, in our judgment, detained for political reasons and who should be freed. And at the same time, there are, of course, American citizens who remain unjustly detained. We're working on that every day. Thank you.
Gentleman yields.